Let's pick up on top of 712 in the Stairs of Cirith Ungol. This is just a few pages, 4 or 5 pages before the end of the chapter. Sam's been talking to Frodo about tales and about what are the best kinds of tales. 1, to read, and 2, to find oneself in. Because he says, the kinds of tales you want to read aren't necessarily the kinds you want to find yourself as one of the major characters in. And he says at the very top of 712, I wonder what sort of tale we've fallen into. Frodo, I wonder, but I don't know. And that's the way of a real tale. Take anyone that you're fond of. You may know or guess what kind of a tale it is, happy ending or sad ending, but the people in it don't know. And you don't want them to. And Sam replies, no, sir, of course not. Barren now. And he goes back to the story that Aragorn sang to them of the tale of Beren and Luthien back at Weathertop. Barren now. He never thought he was going to get that Silmaril from the Iron Crown and Thangordrim, and yet he did. Now's a worse place and a blacker danger than ours. Why? Because the Lord of Thangordrim was Morgoth, who was the master of Sauron. Sauron is, like the little finger of Morgoth. But that's a long tale, of course, and goes on past the happiness and into grief and beyond it. And the Silmaril went on and came to Arendelle. And Sam almost, smacks himself upside the head and says, and I never thought of that before. Well, you've got some of that light, sir, in that star glass that the lady gave you. Why, we're in the same tale still. And it suddenly hits Sam. That tale that actually occurred historically thousands upon thousands upon thousands of years ago is a tale that he is in. Okay? Kind of echoes what Aragorn said to Eothane when he said, do we walk in legends or on the green earth? And Aragorn said, a man may do both. Don't the great tales never end? Frodo, no, as tales they never end. But the people in them come and go when their part's ended. Our part will end later or sooner. And Sam thinks, and then we can have some rest and sleep. And he goes on and talks about Frodo and the ring. And Frodo says, yeah, but Sam, you're kind of overplaying it. Because I think the kids are going to say, I want to hear more about Sam, Dad. Why didn't they put in more of his talk? That's what I like. Now, Mr. Frodo, you shouldn't make fun. Sam says, I was serious. Frodo, so was I. We're going on a bit too fast. You and I, Sam, are still stuck in the worst places of the story. In other words, Sam's already looking forward to the end of the story. And Frodo's saying, Sam, we're in the middle of the story. In fact, we're not only in the middle of the story, what part of the story is he in?
Probably the worst part.
Yeah. We're getting ready for the very worst part. Some will say, shut the book now, Dad. We don't want to read anymore. Sam, maybe, but not me. Things done and over and made into part of the great tales are different. Why, even Gollum might be good in a tale. Better than he is to have around you anyway. And he used to like tales. And he says, I wonder if he thinks he's the hero or the villain. Do you think Gollum even thinks in those terms of, is he in part of a tale? No. And so he calls out for Gollum and they realize he's gone. And Sam's like, I wish he were still around. I wonder what he's thinking of, they talk about. Bottom of 713. Frodo says, I don't really think he's got just one plain scheme in his muddled head. I think he really is in part trying to save the precious from the enemy as long as he can. That is, to keep Sauron from getting it. For that would be the last disaster for himself too, if the enemy got it. Okay? So, they decide they need some rest. Sam tells Frodo, I'll take first watch. Sam leans down against the wall. Frodo lies down, puts his head in Sam's lap, and they both fall asleep. And then we get this picture. Bottom of 714. And so Gollum found them hours later when he returned, crawling and creeping down the path out of the gloom ahead. Sam sat propped against the stone, his head dropping sideways and his breathing heavy. In his lap lay Frodo's head, drowned deep in sleep. Peace was in both their faces. Gollum looked at them. A strange expression passed over his lean, hungry face. The gleam faded from his eyes. Now, in the past, when we've seen Gollum's eyes kind of go from this glint to this gleam and back and forth, it implies there's a change going on, okay, internally, like he's wrestling with himself. The gleam faded from his eyes, and they went dim and gray, old and tired. A spasm of pain seemed to twist him, and he turned away, peering back up towards the pass, shaking his head, as if engaged in some interior debate. And then he came back, meaning he didn't walk up to the pass. He turns back and looks back at Frodo and Sam. And slowly putting out a trembling hand, very cautiously he touched Frodo's knee. But almost the touch was a caress. For a fleeting moment, could one of the sleepers have seen him, they would have thought that they beheld an old, weary hobbit, shrunken by the years that had carried him far beyond his time, beyond friends and kin, and the fields and streams of youth, an old, starved, pitiable thing. Okay? Now look at that description again. Gollum sees Frodo and Sam. They're sound asleep. We're told there's peace in their faces. And he comes up to them, and he puts a hand out and touches Frodo's knee. And then the narrator says, if one of the sleepers could have seen him, what would they have seen? Essentially, three hobbits. One, old, pitiable, starved, beyond his years. Okay? Why does Gollum touch Frodo's knee? Why not his hand? Why not his head? Why not his chest? Why the knee? Well, in classical literature, in Hebrew literature, for example, the Old Testament, touching a person's knee or clasping them around the knees is often one of two things. You're either seeking a blessing, okay, or you're begging for mercy. In the Roman epic, the Aeneid, there's a scene where a guy, if I remember right, his name is Turnus, clasps another character around the knees because he's begging mercy. He's an enemy of the person whose knees he's clasped. He doesn't receive it, the guy kills him. Okay? Throughout the Old Testament, when somebody seeks a blessing from his father, he goes up and he puts his head or his hands, or sometimes both, on his father's knees. Okay? So when Gollum goes up and touches Frodo's knee, it's almost as if he's seeking either this blessing or this mercy, almost like forgiveness. Okay? But what happens? Frodo stirs. Hand her that roll again. Make sure you sign it on the right side, the side that says 2030. But Frodo stirs, and he cries out. And Sam sees Gollum, and Sam thinks he's pawing. Gollum is pawing at Frodo Hey you, what are you up to? Nothing, nice master. Where have you been to? Sneaking off and sneaking back, you old villain. And notice the effect on Gollum. Gollum withdrew himself. So, whereas he was reaching out, he draws back. He kind of pulls back into his shell, so to speak. And a green glint flickered under his heavy lids. That's the evil returning. Almost spider-like, he looked now, crouched back on his bent limbs with his protruding eyes. The fleeting moment had passed. What's the moment? What could have occurred at that point? It's almost like that could have been the beginning of Gollum's transformation. Or the beginning, or maybe not the beginning because maybe it's already begun, but the more rapid movement of Gollum's redemption. If Sam hadn't said, there, sneaking Gollum, if instead he had said, there, Gollum, it'll be okay. We'll get through this together. Or reached out to him in some way. Would Gollum have withdrawn and become spider-like and said, sneaking? Hobbits always supplied, yes, on nice hobbits. Smeagol brings them up secret ways that nobody else can find. Tired he is, thirsty is, yes, thirsty. And he guides them and he searches for paths and they say, sneak. Sam feels a little bit remorse. The only problem is, too late. Well, where have you been to? Sneaking, Gollum says. Okay. Well, where has he been? Sneaking. He's been going up, and we find out in the next chapter, making plans with Shelob. We don't know exactly how. We don't know that Gollum goes up there and offers this proposition to her. Okay. But we do know is when they get to the top of the pass, and they run into the webs, Gollum's nowhere to be found. Okay. Sam reminds Frodo of the star glass, page 720. Frodo pulls it out. Light goes out of it. The eyes come closer. They don't know yet what this thing is. 721. Frodo cries out, Galadriel. The eyes halt. They start going their way back. And we get a long description of Shelob in 723. Page 725 at the bottom. Frodo starts to run for what he thinks is the open pass. Sam starts to yell to him, "Look out, Master, I'm..." Got him! Top of 726. At last, my precious, we've got him. Yes, the nasty hobbit. If we takes this one, she'll get the other. Yes, Shelob will get him. Not Smeagol, he promised. He won't hurt Master at all. But he's got you, you nasty, filthy little sneak. Okay? And Sam suddenly has kind of super hobbit strength. He throws Gollum off. He scares Shelob off. And we get chapter 10, the choices of Master Samwise, and we see Frodo lying face upward on the ground with Shelob over him. Sam runs up with Sting, gets right underneath her. As she starts to lower, he raises his dagger and spills her guts. She doesn't die. She runs off as Sam cries out to Githoniel. And he goes back and he sees Frodo. He has seen this image of Frodo before in the Mirror of Galadriel, where he saw Frodo bound in what appeared to be a cave. 731, he passes out. When he finally comes to, notice he has to come to a decision. What shall I do? Did I come all this way with him for nothing? And he thinks of the words he said earlier, I have something to do before the end. I must see it through, sir, if you understand. Well, when did he say that? At the Mirror of Galadriel. But what can I do? Not leave Mr. Frodo dead. And go home. Oh, or go on. Go on? Is that what I've got to do? And leave him? So he says, well, if I'm going to go on, I've got to take some things. So he takes Frodo's sword. He takes Frodo's star glass. But he can't leave him. And he starts to think through the possibilities. See it through. Page 732. What am I to do then? See it through. What? Me? Alone go to the crack of doom and all? Me take the ring from him? The council gave it to him. And the council gave him companions so that the errand should not fail. You are the last of all the company. The errand must not fail. And Sam realizes, if I don't take the ring, what's going to happen? The orcs are going to come and they're going to find it. They find it, it goes to Sauron. Game over. I wish I wasn't the last. Frodo wished essentially the same thing at the beginning of the novel. I wish the ring hadn't come to me. Sam, why am I left all alone to make up my mind? I'm sure to go wrong, and it's not for me to go taking the ring, putting myself forward. But you're not putting yourself forward. You've been put forward. You're the last one alive, he thinks. Okay? So he decides, I've got to take it. So he takes it and leaves. He puts the ring on. He hears the orcs. And he hears Gorbag and Shagrat talking. And Sam comes back to himself and says, I can't leave Mr. Frodo. I've got to go back to him. And as he follows the orcs, what does he come to learn? Frodo's not dead. He's merely stunned. And the orcs take Frodo, and Sam is left on the other side of a closed door. And Tolkien ends the novel that way. The great door slammed to, boom. The bars of iron fell into place inside, clang. The gate was shut. Sam hurls himself. He's out in the darkness. Frodo is alive, but taken by the enemy. And now you've got to wait 6 months if you're in England for the next book. And what does Tolkien do? We don't open the next book and read immediately about what happens with Sam and Frodo. No. Where does he take us? He takes us back to the end of book 3. Okay? When I'll get him right in a minute. Pippin and Gandalf leave to get Pippin away from the Palantir. And so we follow Pippin and Gandalf off to Minas Tirith. Okay? So as they ride on Shadowfax, they talk some, and they get to Minas Tirith. Let's see here. And just before they have their interview with Denethor, Boromir and Faramir's father, page 753, Gandalf tells him, be careful of your words, Master Peregrine. This is no time for hobbit pertness. Theoden is a kindly old man. Denethor is of another sort, proud and subtle, a king of far greater lineage and power, though he's not called a king, a man of far greater lineage and power. But he will speak most to you and question you much, since you can tell him of his son Boromir. He loved him greatly, too much, perhaps. But under cover of this love, he will think it easier to learn what he wishes from you rather than from me. Do not tell him more than you need to. leave Frodo out of it, and say nothing about Aragorn. Okay? Why not? What's wrong with Strider? You don't understand. Okay? So he says, it is scarcely, top of 754, it is scarcely wise when bringing the news of the death of his heir to a mighty lord to speak overmuch of the coming of one who will, if he comes, claim the kingship. That is, it's bad enough that Denethor's lost Boromir. It would be doubly bad if he also learns he's going to be out of a job, essentially. Kingship. It's like Pippin hasn't heard a word. Okay? So, they go in and meet Denethor. Page 755, Pippin talks about how Boromir died, and that he died to save himself and his kinsmen. And on the spur of the moment, he pulls out his sword, he goes up to Denethor, and he lays it at his feet, and says, little service, no doubt, will so great a lord of men think to find in a hobbit a halfling from the northern shire. Yet such as it is, I will offer it in payment of my debt. He's offering himself in payment of Boromir. Okay? Looks at the sword, can see that it was made by the men of Western Nessa. And he says, are you sure you're going to do this? And Pippin says yes. And Gandalf tells him what to do. Here do I swear fealty and service to Gondor and to the Lord and Steward of the realm, to speak and to be silent, to do and to let be, to come and to go, in need or in plenty, peace or war, living or dying, from this hour henceforth, until my Lord release me or death take me or the world end. Okay. This means till death, or the Lord release me. Okay. So, Denethor's first command, speak. Tell me about Boromir. Okay? And he does. It's page 757. Gandalf says, hopefully you'll want to speak to me some too. Denethor says, I already know a lot that's going on. And we get this paragraph where kind of we see Denethor and Gandalf from Pippin's perspective. Denethor looked indeed much more like a great wizard than Gandalf did, more kingly, beautiful, and powerful, and older. Yet by a sense other than sight, Pippin perceived that Gandalf had the greater power and the deeper wisdom, and a majesty that was veiled. And he was older, far older. How much older? And then he starts to think. Treebeard had said something about wizards, but even then he had not thought of Gandalf as one of them. What was Gandalf? In what far time and place did he come into the world, and when would he leave it? And then he notices Denethor breaks his gaze first. They're having a stare down. And Gandalf wins. Okay? So they bring food, and they talk. And Denethor says, right in the middle of 759, the rule of Gondor, my lord, is mine, and no other man's, unless the king should come again. Denethor is speaking to Gandalf. Okay? Gandalf, unless the king should come again. Now when Denethor says that, initially it's kind of read as it's just an offhand statement. It's like the thing, people will sometimes say, Godspeed or something like that. They don't really mean, may God thrive your goals. May God bring to success your ambition. Okay? Which is what Godspeed really means. So when he says, unless the king should come again, it's kind of like it's just a saying. But Gandalf takes that to mean what it really means. Unless the king should come again. Well, my lord steward, it is your task to keep some kingdom still against that event, which few now look to see. But in that task you shall have all the aid that you are pleased to ask for. But I will say this, the rule of no realm is mine, neither of Gondor nor any other, great or small. Okay? What has Denethor been talking about? He's been saying, Gondor, which is this video here, all of this is under my protection because I'm the steward until the king come again. Gandalf, the rule of no realm is mine, neither of Gondor nor any great nor small, but all worthy things that are in peril as the world now stands, those are my care. All worthy things, Gandalf says. Anywhere, any place, any time, there is something of worth. That is my job. And for my part, I shall not wholly fail in my task, though Gondor should perish. If anything passes through this night, that can what? Still grow fair or bear fruit, and flower again in days to come. Though Gondor be wiped out overnight, he's saying, if there is a single flower that lives overnight, that will bloom again tomorrow, I won't have failed. Okay? Remember the part in the essay on fairy stories where he talks about the eucatastrophe and how it shows in the face of much evidence to the contrary? Okay? If all of this is destroyed and this is the only thing that lives, Gandalf is saying, this is kind of the eucatastrophe. It shows, no matter how bad things get, life does go on. Okay? For I also am a steward. Did you not know? He's steward of what? All of Middle-earth. So they leave. And Pippin and Gandalf talk, and Pippin says, I did the best I could. And he says, you did indeed. And he says, you did very well. Okay. Skip a bit. Pippin goes off with Baragon. Baragon takes him to his son. And I want to pick up with skip the rest of that chapter. Pick up with chapter 2, the passing of the great company. Okay? So, we've seen Pippin and Gandalf. Then what does Tolkien do? We get the passing of the great company. So we have Aragorn, Legolas, Gimli, and Merry. Okay? Aragorn says, page 773. As for the king, he will go, that is Theoden, he will go to the muster that he commanded Edoras. There he's going to hear tidings of war, but Aragorn says, for me and any that will go with me. Legolas says, I'll go. Gimli says, I'll go. He says, I have to go to Minas Tirith also, but I don't yet see the road. Merry, don't leave me behind. Merry thinks he's going to be like a piece of baggage that can't come. Aragorn says, your road, Merry, lies with who? Theoden. Okay. So we're going to see Merry go off with Theoden. Aragorn, Legolas, and Gimli go off alone. So the riders of the north catch up to them in page 775. Elro here, whose father is Elrond, tells Aragorn, the days are short. If thou art in haste, remember the paths of the dead. Okay, he's passing on advice from Aragorn. Aragorn, days are going to be really short before I take that path. Okay? So he speaks to Halbarad. He says, "What's that you got?" "It's a gift from the Lady of Rivendell. Her words are, 'The days are short. Either our hope cometh, or all hopes end. Therefore I send thee what I have made for thee. Farewell, Elfstone.'" And Aragorn says, "Okay, I know what it is. Keep it wrapped up." Okay. Elrond tells Aragorn the days are short. Elrond's daughter tells Aragorn the days are short. And she says, "Either our hope cometh, or all hopes end." When she says "our hope cometh," I think she's referring to two separate hopes. One is a very personal hope. Their hope to be married. But if all hopes end comes true, their hope ends also. All hopes end is if Sauron wins. Okay? Either our hope cometh, that is, if we defeat Sauron, if you defeat Sauron, if Sauron is defeated, then our hope will be fulfilled. If not, all hopes are washed away. Okay? So, page 777, Merry offers his sword to Theoden, just as Pippin did to Denethor. So he's now a knight of Rohan. 779, Aragorn tells Theoden the path he's going to take, the paths of the dead. Theoden doesn't like the idea, neither does Eomer. Okay. I'm going to skip a bunch. Page 783. So the group kind of splinters. Theoden and the Riders of Rohan and Merry, they head off essentially to Minas Tirith. Okay. Aragorn, Legolas, and Gimli head off to the paths of the dead. On their way, they go past Dunharrow, where Éowyn is. And page 783, he tells her where he's headed. And she says, "You must be on the wrong road. There's no way through there." He says, "I am not astray, for I walked in this land ere you were born to grace it. I shall ride by the paths of the dead. Is it then your errand to seek death?" She takes that to mean, are you committing suicide? For that is all you will find on that road. They, who's the they? The dead. Do not suffer the living to pass. They may suffer me to pass. He says, "But I will try it." But this is madness. Why? Because she says, "With you there are men of renown and prowess. There are men with great names, great stories, and great physical strength. Don't take them into the shadows. Why? Lead them to war. They can win great victorious battles," she says. "Go with my brother, at least." "It is not madness," he says, "for I go on a path appointed." Appointed. Just as when Frodo and Sam say to Gollum, "How is our path appointed?" Okay. Or when Elrond tells Frodo, "It seems that this task was appointed for you. Those who follow me do so of their own free will." Okay. So they kind of split company for a bit, and then she comes back to him. Page 784. "Why will you go on this deadly road?" She's trying to wrap her mind around this. "Because I must. Only so can I see any hope of doing my part in the war against Sauron." Does he explain everything to her? No. Okay? Were I to go where my heart dwells, he says, man, I'd be in Rivendell in a heartbeat. Notice he doesn't explain what that means. But she's silent and wondering. And she says, okay, well, if you're going to go that way, then let me ride with you. For I'm weary of skulking in the hills and wish to face peril in battle. Your duty is with your people. Okay? Notice what idea he brings up. Duty, your obligation. And she goes, oh, great. Too often have I heard of duty. Am I not in the house of Eorl, a shield maiden, not a dry nurse? I've waited on faltering feet long enough. Since they falter no longer, may I not now spend my life as I will? What does she mean by spend? What do you do when you spend money?
Give it away.
Yeah, do you still have it? No, you don't. So what does she mean when she says, may I not now spend my life as I will?
Waste.
Yeah. Waste it. To give it away. Or to lose it. Few may do that with honor. Aragorn takes her meaning and says, no, you can't waste your life. You can't give your life away. How does she put it? As I will. Will means desire or wish. Can't I end my life as I desire or as I wish? Few may do that with honor. We're going to see somebody in a few chapters back in Minas Tirith do this exact thing, but without honor. But as for you, lady, did you not accept the charge to govern the people until their Lord's return? Before Theoden and Eomer rode off with the riders of Rohan, she agreed to do what? To lead those that were left behind. So she now has a charge, an obligation. If you had not been chosen, then some marshal or captain would have been set in their place, in your place. So maybe if she hadn't gone, maybe it would have been Eomer. So maybe it wouldn't be Eomer riding off to glory as she thinks he's doing. And he could not ride away from his charge, were he weary of it or no. It's the difference between the flight of the deserter and the escape of the prisoner. What's the deserter want to do? He wants to get away from his obligations. Okay? Shall I always be chosen? Did she have to say yes? No. Shall I always be left behind when the riders depart? Notice, to mind the house while they win renown and find food and beds when they return. What is she talking about? She's tired of being a woman, right? She's tired of being the one to take care of what gets left behind. A time may come soon when none will return. Now just let that sink in for a bit. And if a time comes soon when none will return, then what does that mean? Then those of you who are left behind will have to do what? Are they going to be left alone in peace? No. Are they going to have to fight? Yep. What kind of battle will they fight? A losing one. Then there will be need of valor without renown. That is, there will be need of courage without fame, without glory, without reputation, without people making songs and stories and legends. For none shall remember the deeds that are done in the last defense of your homes. Yet the deeds will not be less valiant because they are unpraised. Why is Aragorn bringing this up? What is it that really is motivating Eowyn? What does she want? Glory. She wants glory. She wants fame. She wants praise. All your words are but to say, you are a woman and your part is in the house. Notice, has she listened to him? Has she heard him? But when the men have died in battle and honor, notice, you have leave to be burned in the house. For the men will need it no more. There's not going to be any glory to be won. There's not going to be stories to be told. Why? Because the men will already be dead and it won't really matter anymore. But I am of the house of Errol and not a, she adds a different term. She doesn't use shield maiden here. No, she uses serving woman. What's a serving woman? The first part of the term is the most important one. Someone who serves someone else. She doesn't want to serve somebody else. Okay? She doesn't want to put herself beneath somebody else. I can ride and wield blade. I do not fear either pain or death. What do you fear? A cage. To stay behind bars until use and old age accept them, and all chance of doing great deeds is gone beyond recall or desire. Notice, she wants to do what? Great deeds. What does she define as a great deed? Fighting. Killing in war. Is that the only great deed that can be done? Not in Tolkien's mind. And yet you counseled me not to adventure on the road that I had chosen because it is perilous. You told me not to take this road because I might die on it. What does she want? She wants to do a great deed and die in it. So may one counsel another, yet I do not bid you flee from peril, but to ride to battle. Where what? Where your sword may win. Notice what she puts first. Renown and victory. She puts the emphasis on glory, not on winning the actual battle. Because you can win great glory and die in battle. Okay? I would not see a thing that is high and excellent cast away needlessly. Nor would I. Stay here. Okay? So, Aragorn, Legolas, Gimli, Aragorn's company, leave. They ride to the paths of the dead. They go through that crack. They call the dead out. And the dead come and they say, we will fulfill our oath. And then have peace. Then we get chapter 3, the muster of Rowan. Okay? And we're told, now all roads were running together to the east to meet the coming of war and the onset of the shadow. It's like all of these threads are now heading in one direction, straight to Mordor. Okay? So we get the muster of Rowan. Theoden and his men go by Eowyn. Eowyn tells them where Aragorn and his riders have gone to. We're told, page 800. We're told on page 800 that Merry is not going to be riding with Theoden into battle. Theoden says, I did not say that I would bid you ride with me on any road. Good night. And page 801, he says, you're going to ride with me to Edoras to look on Mediceld, but you're not going to come with me. Okay? And I'm going to skip a bit again. Page 804. One of the riders comes up to Merry and says, where a will once not, a way open, so we say. You wish to go whither the Lord of the Mark goes? I do. Then go with me. I will bury you before me under my cloak until we are far afield. I don't know your name, Merry says. Do you not? Well, then call me Durnhelm. Durn comes from the Old English word Dirna, which means hidden or secret. Helm is the Old English word helm, and it just means protector. Okay? A helmet is a protector you wear on your head. So, Durnhelm, secret, hidden protector. So we get the siege of Gondor. And what does Tolkien do? He takes us back to Pippin and Gandalf. So we're going to go back and forth like this until they're all brought together again towards the very end of Book 4. Gandalf finished chapter 2 saying something to the effect of, chapter 1. Saying, the night will be too short. I have come back here, for I must have a little peace alone. You should sleep in a bed while you still may. At the sunrise, I shall take you to Lord Denethor again. No, when the summons comes, not at sunrise. The darkness has begun. There will be no dawn. Okay? So, Gandalf wakes Pippin up. Says, time for you to go see Denethor. Pippin does. There are black riders in the air. I'm skipping a bunch. And page 811. Pippin goes into Denethor's private chamber. And meets Faramir. Faramir says, now we come to strange matters. For this is not the first halfling that I've seen walking out of northern legends into the Southlands. Gandalf sits up straight, grips his chair, and Faramir relates all of his meeting with Frodo and Sam. Cirith Ungol, Morgulvale, the time, Faramir, the time, page 812. When did this happen? In the morning 2 days ago. All right? So Gandalf's sitting there and he's kind of calculating the time. And then Faramir turns to his father and says, I hope that I have not done ill. Ill? Why do you ask? The men were under your command? Or do you ask for my judgment on all your deeds? Have I not seen your eye fixed on Mithrandir, seeking whether you said well or too much? My son, your father is old, but not dotard. I can see and hear as was my wont, and little of what you have said, half said, or left unsaid is now hidden from me. Alas for Boromir. Why does he say alas for Boromir? Because he's saying, if only Boromir were still alive and you were dead instead. If what I've done displeases you, Father, I wish I'd known your counsel before the burden of a weighty judgment was thrust on me. Would it have differed? Would you have changed your judgment? No, you would still have done just so. I deem I know you too well. Okay? Your duty now is to protect what Boromir would have protected. Page 813 at the top. Do you wish then that our places had been had been exchanged? Do you wish I had died instead of Boromir? Yes, Denethor says. I wish that indeed. Boromir was loyal to me, and no wizard's pupil. Okay? And notice Gandalf finally intervenes and says what? Boromir wouldn't have brought you this thing. He would have stretched out his hand to this thing, and taking it, he would have fallen. And Denethor thinks that's just because Boromir wasn't turnable to your will. So Gandalf says, okay, Denethor, what would you have done? Okay. If you had had this thing, what would you have done? He says, I would have taken it. I would have put it in the deep vaults. Gandalf, I don't trust you. And this is why we didn't bring it to Minas Tirith. No, because when he says, I don't trust you, Denethor kind of flashes his eyes. He says, I don't trust myself. So Denethor asked, the bottom of 814, what about the troops at Osgiliath? Are they well garrisoned? Is it strong? Will it repel the orcs? He says it's not strong. I've sent the company of Ithilien. Denethor says they're going to need a captain. Faramir says, I'll go. Okay. So Pippin and Gandalf talk for a bit. Bottom of 816. Denethor says, Faramir says he'll go, and he says, parting words to Denethor, if I should return, think better of me. That depends on the manner of your return. What does Denethor mean?
Alive or dead?
Yeah, it could be that. What else could it mean, though? If you return with your tail between your legs. See, he doesn't think Faramir is as warriorly as Denethor. So Gandalf grabs Faramir before he leaves and just reminds him, you will be needed here for other things than war. Your father loves you, Faramir, and will remember it ere the end. Why doesn't he remember it now? Well, he's still grieving for Boromir. Okay? So the next day, there's darkness and battle. I'm going to skip a bunch. Faramir is brought in, wounded, unconscious, page 821. The Nazgul came. The war rages outside. Page 824. Denethor lacks all hope. Denethor says, nay, I will not come down. I must stay beside my son. He might still speak before the end, but that is near. Follow whom you will, even the grey fool, though his hope has failed. He thinks the ring has been discovered. Gandalf takes command of the city. And what does Denethor decide to do? Page 825. He decides to do this. He's going to spend his life how he sees fit. Rather than wait for Sauron to come take control of the city and make him bow to him, Denethor is going to commit suicide. He thinks Faramir is already on the point of death. He's already burning from fever. So he has a huge funeral pyre built. Pippin watches all this, thinks this isn't right. So he runs down and tells Aragorn, and then runs and tells Gandalf. Okay? Aragorn goes up to stop Denethor, but Gandalf can't go to stop him because at the end of the chapter, page 829, Gandalf is standing at the gates of Minas Tirith. The gates that have never failed before in the entire history of Minas Tirith. And the orcs are wheeling this big battering ram named Grond, and they break through the gates finally. And we're told in this highly descriptive passage, in rode the Lord of the Nazgul, a great black shape against the fires beyond he loomed up, grown to a vast menace of despair. In rode the Lord of the Nazgul, under the archway that no enemy ever yet had passed, and all fled before his face, all save one. There waiting, silent and still in the space before the gate, sat Gandalf upon Shadowfax. Shadowfax, who alone among the free horses of the earth endured the terror, unmoving, steadfast, as a graven image in Rathdennen. You cannot enter here, said Gandalf. Go back to the abyss prepared for you. Almost the exact same words he said to the Balrog. Go back to the abyss prepared for you. Go back. Fall into the nothingness that awaits you and your master. Go. The rider flings back his hood, and there's a crown, but nothing between the crown and the shoulders of the cape. Old fool! Old fool! This is my hour. Do you not know death when you see it? Die now and curse in vain. Which is what Job's wife, Job the Old Testament prophet, which is what Job's wife says to him when he has his whole family wiped out. Die now and curse God in vain, is what she says. Die now and curse in vain. He lifts his sword, flames run down the blade. Gandalf just sits there. It looks like all hell's about to break loose, and what happens? In some little courtyard off in the city, we hear a cock crows. Remember what Gandalf said about his stewardship? If something can pass through this night that tomorrow will blossom or give forth life, like a cock crowing, he says, I will not have failed. So they hear the cock crow, and then what happens? Like an echo, but not from within the city, but from way outside the city. They hear the horns of Rowan blowing. Okay? Why? Because it's totally unexpected. This is the scene where you expect Sauron will be triumphant. And instead, we get the ride of the Rohirrim. Okay? The Rohirrim come in the Battle of the Pelennor Fields. Theoden attempts to, take on the Nazgul. His horse fails him, bucks, falls on him, so he's pinned beneath it. And the captain of the Nazgul, when he hears the riders of Rowan's horns, he leaves Minas Tirith to go out and lead his forces. Okay? The Nazgul that he's riding on flies out and comes down about where Theoden is. Theoden gets pinned. Okay? Merry is there with Durnhelm. And we hear Theoden cry, to me, to me. Okay, Snowmane falls. Theoden's pinned underneath it. And Merry thinks to himself, Kingsman, bottom of page 840. You must stay by him. As a father you shall be to me, he said. Or you said. He's thinking this, but his body won't move. Okay. And then he hears a voice, Durnhelm's voice. Begone, foul drummer lake, lord of Carrion, leave the dead in peace. Come not between the Nazgul and his prey. That is, this winged dragon-like thing that he flies on, which wants to eat the horse and Theoden. For he will not slay thee in thy turn, he will bear thee away to the houses of lamentation beyond all darkness where thy flesh, blah, blah, blah. Do what you will, but I will hinder it if I may. Hinder me, thou fool. No living man may hinder me. And then what happens? Durnhelm pulls off the helm. See, in the films, you already know who this is. Completely idiotic. Okay? Pulls off the helm and reveals himself to be herself, Eowyn. No living man am I. You look upon a woman, Eowyn I am, Eowyn's daughter. You stand between me, my lord, and my kin. Begone if you be not deathless. The ringed creature screams at her and she cuts its head off. Kills the Nazgul. So Mary thinks, I need to help her. Okay? So he starts to crawl. Eowyn kills it. It falls to the ground. The Black Rider dismounts, gets up, walks over to Eowyn, has a big mace. Probably not the kind, well, let me just make sure. Yeah, probably not the kind with a ball on a chain, but a mace that's more like this. A big, like, spiked ball on the end that you swing like a bat, okay? Crushes whatever it hits. And so he rises up and he swings his mace. She deflects it with her shield, which breaks and her arm is broken. And right as he does that, he stumbles forward. The Black Rider does. Why? What did Mary do? Stabs him in the back of the knee. If you've ever had knee pain, knee surgery, you can understand how, or a torn ligament or something, how bad that is. So what? Frodo stabbed him on Weathertop. Didn't do any good. So why does this one work?
It's in the knee.
Well, one, because it's in the knee, and because it's one of the swords that they got from the Barrow. That Tom Bombadil tells them the sword was made specifically to battle the Witch King of Angmar and his troops. This is the Witch King of Angmar. So it's almost like this sword has woven into it spells of power to kill this guy. So Sam stabs him in the back of the knee. He falls forward, and Eowyn just holds her sword up. And it goes right through where his neck would be. She doesn't need a special sword because she's not a man. Any sword will do for a woman. Okay? She passes out. Mary passes out. Theoden's dead. So Éomer comes in. He goes berserk. Okay? What does that word mean? Anybody know? Literally, bear shirt. It means a shape changer. Okay? The Norse, Vikings, would get so utterly drunk that when they would go off into battle, they were called berserkers. They would fight like bears. In other words, you don't want to be on the wrong side of one of your buddies. Because when they're swinging an axe or sword, they wouldn't look at who they're swinging. Okay? You get in the way, you get killed. Kind of a thing. So, the battle is won, and Theoden and Éowyn get carried off in honor back to Minas Tirith. What about Merry? Nope. He walks on his own, kind of in a stupor. But before the battle is completely won, Page 846. Bottom of the page. It's not going great, but it's the tide has kind of turned because the Witch King of Angmar is dead, the captain of the Nine, and suddenly we start hearing men shout, "The Corsairs of Umber, the Corsairs of Umber. The Corsairs of Umber are coming." And the Rohirrim hear that as horrible news, because the Corsairs of Umber in the past have always been Sauron's allies. But now, what flag do they see unfurled? The flag of Gondor. The king's flag, not the flag of the steward. Okay? And we're told, bottom of 847, thus came Aragorn, son of Arathorn, Elisar, Isildur's heir, out of the paths of the dead, borne upon a wind from the sea to the kingdom of Gondor. And the mirth of the Rohirrim was a torrent of laughter and a flashing of swords. But the hosts of Mordor were seized with bewilderment, and a great wizardry. It seemed to them that their own ships should be filled with their foes. Okay? Chapter 7, the Pyre of Denethor. Keep this open where I can see. Pyre of Denethor. Gandalf makes his way back up to the houses of the dead and stops the guards from lighting the fire. He and Denethor talk a bit. And what does Denethor finally reveal? How did he see and know so much? He had the Palantir of Minas Tirith that he used to look into. But keep in mind, what must you have in order to use a Palantir? Or what must you be able to do? Would be a better way of putting it. You've got to be able to control the other Palantir that you're trying to see. Okay? So you have to have a strength of will and mind that is greater than those who are using the other Palantir. Well, who's using the other Palantir? Sauron, whose mind and will are a bit stronger than Denethor's, let's say. So what did Sauron allow Denethor to see? Like an old Soviet Union May Day parade. Just troops after troops after troops. Armament after armament after armament. So that Denethor saw these tens upon tens of thousands. Okay? Strong army, and thought, there's no way we can defeat this. They will simply wear us down through attrition. Okay? Got 10 minutes. Houses of healing. Theoden and, not Theoden, Faramir and Eowyn are brought to the houses of healing. Pippin finds Merry, and they take him up. Aragorn is brought to the houses of healing, page 860, because an old woman says, too bad we don't have a king, because the hands of a king are the hands of a healer. And Gandalf says, you're right. And so he sends for Aragorn. But Aragorn doesn't come in as king. Okay, he comes in as Strider. And what does he do? He calls for some of the herb Avalus to be brought. And page 863. Let's see right here. Exactly. No, not 863. 66. Top of 866. Aragorn crushes some of the Atlas in hot steaming water, goes to Faramir, and he calls him. And top of 866, Faramir opens his eyes, looks on Aragorn, a light of knowledge and love was kindled in his eyes. And he says, "My lord, you called me, I come. What does the king command?" Why a light of knowledge? How does knowledge enter his eyes? He merely recognizes the king. That is, there is something about Aragorn that Faramir goes, "It's him. It's the one we've been waiting for all these years." What does the king command? "Walk no more in the shadows. You are weary, rest a while, take food, be ready when I return." "I will, Lord, for who would lie idle when the king has returned?" And what happens? The old lady, Yorith, hears that. She goes outside, "The king's returned." And like wildfire, it spreads around the city. So then Aragorn goes to Eowyn and says, "This is a grievous blow." Okay? "She has pitted against a foe beyond the strength of her mind or body. Those who will take a weapon to such an enemy must be sterner than steel." Okay? And then he turns to Eomer and says, "Her melody begins far back before this day, does it not, Eomer?" And he said, "I don't know. I hold you blameless, but I knew not that Eowyn was touched by any frost until she first looked on you." In other words, I don't blame you, but she didn't get all cold until she looked at you. And the implication is what? And you didn't respond. Okay? But that did not bring her to this pass. Okay? Gandalf says, "My friend, you had horses and deeds of arms in the free fields." In other words, you could do whatever you wanted. But she, born in the body of a maid, had a spirit and courage at least the match of yours. And Gandalf is saying, and because she was born in the body of a maid, she what? She didn't have horses, deeds of arms, and free fields. Yet she was doomed to wait upon an old man whom she loved as a father and watch him falling into a mean, dishonored dotage. And her part seemed to her more ignoble than that of the staff he leaned on. Why? Because she couldn't do anything for him. She couldn't defend him against Wormtongue. And because she served Theoden, what happened? She also heard the words of Wormtongue. Think you that Wormtongue had poison only for Theoden's ears? Have you not heard those words before? Saruman spoke them, the teacher of Wormtongue. Though I do not doubt that Wormtongue at home wrapped their meaning in terms more cunning. My lord, if your sister's love for you and her will still bent to her duty had not restrained her lips, you might have heard even such things as these escape them. Well, what words? What is the house of Eorl but a thatched barn where brigands drink in the reek? He's saying her mind was poisoned by Wormtongue. But who knows what she spoke to the darkness alone in the bitter watches of the night. He seems also to be implying that maybe it's also Wormtongue who fed in her mind this desire for glory. You're a shield maiden. Why are you here waiting on this old man? I can maybe heal her body, Aragorn says. But to what she will awake? Hope, forgetfulness, despair? I don't know. And it's almost like he's saying, do you want me to bring her back? Or do you want to let her go? If to despair, then she will die, unless other healing comes which I cannot bring. So he leans forward and he calls her. And he finally says, 868, awake, Eowyn, Lady of Rohan. Awake. The shadow is gone and all darkness is washed clean. And then he calls Eomer and says, you, come call her. Okay? And then they go to Merry's room. And Merry tells Pippin, it's okay, I'm here in time. He puts his hand on Merry's head. He calls him out. And Merry's first words aren't, I helped kill the Dark Rider. Where's my glory? It's, I'm hungry. And what time is it? And then he thinks of smoking. And then he stops thinking of smoking because the last time he thought of smoking, he was going to smoke with Theoden. And he says, and now I'll never smoke with him. So Aragorn says, then smoke and think of him. Okay? We'll stop there. We'll pick up with the last debate on Thursday.